If you're curious how rich were the McCallister's in Home Alone, then you'll want to watch this video. I'm going to be talking about how rich the McCallister's were in 1990 compared to now, but also I've put together a financial plan for the family, talking about other aspects that the movie does not discuss. So you'll definitely enjoy this video. Welcome back. This is episode 233. Being that this episode is being released on the Christmas Eve day, I thought it'd be a great time to talk about a lighter topic than our usual financial information, and that is Christmas movies, and specifically one of the most popular Christmas movies from my childhood, and that is Home Alone. I'm going to break down some of the financial aspects of the movie and also talk about the McCallister's family financial plan as if I was their financial advisor. If you're new to the show, my goal is to deliver great episodes every week to people who are interested in planning for retirement, investing smarter, and minimizing their income taxes. So to make sure you don't miss an episode, consider signing up for my weekly newsletter. And as a free bonus, you can also download a free chapter of my new book on how to find the best financial advisor for you. Just go to retirewithryan.com and click on download free chapter. So Home Alone, the movie, debuted on November 10th, 1990. And if you've never seen the movie, it stars Kevin McCallister, an 8-year-old boy who is mistakenly left behind when his family flies to Paris for their Christmas vacation. While initially relishing this time by himself, he later is greeted by two would-be burglars, and Kevin eventually manages to outwit them with a series of booby traps before his family returns home, and has grossed nearly $500 million worldwide. Talk about a hit. For 27 years, it held the title of top grossing live action comedy until the 2011's The Hangover Part 2 dethroned that run. So it seems like every year when this movie starts being played around the holidays, one of the questions that people ask are, how rich were the McCallisters? What would their house be worth today? What did Kevin's parents do for work to be able to afford such a beautiful house with 5 children and then be able to fly to Paris for Christmas? They were in the wealthiest 1% of Americans in 1990, according to the New York Times. And the house used for the outdoor scenes is a real house located in a Chicago, Illinois suburb of Winnetka. And it's located at 671 Lincoln Avenue, is about 40 minutes north of Chicago. And when the New York Times wrote their article last year, they estimated its value to be worth $2.4 million. Well, currently, that house is actually up for sale on Realtor.com, and it's listed for $5.25 million. We'll have to wait to see what the house actually sells for once the sale goes through, as it is listed as pending. But it has 5 bedrooms, 6 baths, a little over 9,000 square feet, a 3-car garage, and it is on a half-acre lot. It was built in 1921, has been on the real estate market for 200 days. And your estimated monthly payment at a purchase price of $5.2 million today, assuming you paid full price, are you ready for this? It's an estimated $32,227 per month. That assumes you also put down 20%, or a little over $1 million, and then take out a 30-year fixed mortgage where rates are currently at, which is at about 6.28%. Now, it last sold in 2012 for a little under $1.6 million, and the property taxes are estimated to be about $32,000 a year. So if you use a reasonable mortgage payment to income ratio, which most financial planners recommend, that ratio not be more than 28% of your annual income, for someone to purchase this house today, they would need an annual income of $1.38 million per year. That is assuming that they didn't want to exceed that 28% mortgage to income ratio. The top 1% of earners in America today are considered people who earn $788,000 per year or more. In 1990, when the movie debuted, the New York Times article estimated the family would need an income of $305,000 per year to afford the house. So that is quite an increase in 34 years to be able to afford this house today. It's possible that the home is getting a premium because of its notoriety. It shows on Realtor.com that it previously sold in 1989 for $875,000 in January. about 2 years before the Home Alone movie debuted. So interestingly enough, in 1989, mortgage rates were even higher than they are today. I know we do a lot of complaining about current mortgage rates, but I had to look this up. In 1989, mortgage rates were a little over 10%. Assuming the property taxes on this property in 1989 were $10,000 a year and homeowners insurance was $2,400 a month, their total monthly payment, including escrow, would have been about $7,176 per month, or $86,000 a year. That's more than many people were making in 1990. Assuming the same 0.28 maximum mortgage payment to income ratio, their income would have needed to be about $307,500. So the New York Times article is right on the money. And I would hope that the McCallisters, over time, would have been able to refinance this mortgage, as mortgage rates have declined significantly over the year. Maybe even they locked in at a 2.5% rate in recent years, or they could have paid the mortgage off well before that period. What about income taxes? There's often speculation about what Kevin's parents did for work in the movie. It's not discussed. Maybe his dad was in the financial business. They didn't live too far from Chicago, so maybe he worked at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and maybe his mom was a clothing designer. Hence all the mannequins that Kevin uses in the movie to try to fool the burglars that his family is home at night when they come by to check on the house. So assuming Kevin's parents earned that $307,000 that I estimated they would need in 1990 to stay at that 28% mortgage to income ratio, how much taxes would they have paid on that money? Well, I was surprised to know there were only 2 tax brackets in 1990 as a result of the 1986 Tax Reform Act. And those brackets were 15% and 28%. However, there was what's known as a bubble tax, a 30 or 33% bracket for married couples. Well, for all filers between certain income amounts, but in this example, for married couples filing jointly for their income between $78,000 and $168,000, this was taxed as a higher rate. So I took this even a step further. I downloaded a 1040 form 1990, the actual tax form that a family in 1990 would have filled out. It's amazing what you can find on the internet. So assuming $307,000 of W-2 combined income for both Peter and Kate, I assume Peter earned $207,000 in 1990 and Kate McCallister earned $100,000. I also assume they each contributed the maximum to a 401k plan because their companies offered a 5% match. The maximum you could put into a 401k plan for an employee in 1990 was a little under $8,000, $7,979. I tried to look up what it cost for a family for health insurance premiums in 1990, and I found the average premium for a family was $2,566 per year, not per month, what a family would pay today. And I assume they didn't earn any dividend income or interest income just to keep their tax return easier. Maybe they used up all their savings when they bought the house in 1989. So if you want to see the actual tax return, I have a link to it below, or you can head over to retirewithryan.com/podcast/233, and you can see the actual tax return. So because their income was higher, I had to fill out an alternative minimum tax schedule as well, in addition to the 1040. And this caused them to pay an additional income tax of about $6,400. But altogether, they ended up paying $59,450 in federal tax. So this works out to an effective tax rate of 19.36%, which is not bad, considering they were in the top 1% of Americans in 1990. The state of Illinois also had a state income tax, and at the time, it was a flat rate of 3%. So I multiplied their adjusted gross income by that 3%, and that gave me $8,600 of state income tax. Illinois now has, I believe, a 4.5% flat tax rate. So cash flow. What about their cash flow? Well, it's hard not to talk about their income without talking about their cash flow. So when you deduct their federal and state income tax from their adjusted gross income of $28,476, that would leave them $220,000 after tax. Then you would need to start deducting their household expenses, one of them being their mortgage costs. As I said earlier, that's $86,000 a year because of the high interest rates. So that would leave them $134,000 to pay their monthly expenses. I tried to estimate monthly expenses for a family of 7 in 1990. Hard to come up with that number. I tried to search for budgets, but what I did find is that costs were a lot lower back then, as you can imagine, 34 years ago. And for example, they each had cars, and when Kevin wakes up to find out that his family's not there, he goes out to the garage to check if the cars are there, and he sees 2 cars. One is a Buick Estate wagon, the other is a Buick LeSabre. A new Buick Estate wagon in 1990 was a little under $18,000. A new Buick LeSabre was just a hair over $16,000. So assuming they took out car loans to buy these cars, a car loan interest rate in the 1990 was about 12% due to the high interest rates. So I built that into the budget. A family of 4 spent an average of about $128.30 per week on groceries. So I estimated their monthly groceries to be $1,000 per month. What about home heating costs? Well, assuming they have a furnace, well, we saw the furnace, right? It was featured in the movie, scared Kevin to go back upstairs. That's an oil-burning furnace. In 1990, the cost of heating oil was approximately 69 cents per gallon. And I would just assume they used about $3,400 a year, 3,000 gallons a year of heating oil is how much they used. So when you add all this up, I had some other expenses here as well. It comes up with about $3,400 per month of living expenses, excluding their mortgage. So then reducing that money left over after their mortgage from the living expenses leaves them about $78,000 per month of disposable income. That's after paying taxes, mortgage, household expenses. I didn't estimate a lot of expenses for the children. I'm not sure what was going on with sports and activities back then. Probably not as much as going on now. But they did have a lot of disposable income. But we haven't talked about the looming college costs for a family of 5. So what about college costs? Well, according to an internet search, Illinois has 12 in-state colleges to choose from. With a family of 5, going to in-state schools would probably be very important to help keep costs down, even with the McCallister family's income. So I created an Excel sheet with all of the children on it, showing their age, when they would start school. And I assumed they would start the year they turned 18 and would be graduating in 4 years. And I know this is not always easy for a lot of children. Buzz is the oldest, and assuming he was 15 in 1990, Kevin's older brother, he would have started college in 1993. The all-in cost for the University of Illinois in 1990 for in-state tuition was $10,000. So it's hard to find the all-in cost for every year. So I just inflated the starting cost of $10,000 by 5% a year for these projections. Kevin would be the last to graduate college, finishing in 2003, with the total cost that year estimated to be a little bit more than $16,000. So it seems from the cash flow that I estimated, the McCallisters would be able to cover these college costs from their monthly disposable income. I'll assume they wanted to pay for the full cost of 4-year education for each child, with the child not taking out loans. And if the child wanted to go post-grad or do any additional schooling, they would pay for it on their own. So the total cost for the family to send all 5 kids to college would have been $258,000. Not bad, considering that now it can cost more than that to send one child to school for 4 years at many private colleges. There were definitely some years where they were paying for 3 children at the same time, with the most expensive year being 2000. That would have cost them $42,000 a year. It's still a lot of money, but based on this fictitious family, they have a lot of disposable income. What about retirement planning? How much should the parents have been saving towards retirement? Well, 401ks were accidentally created in 1978 by Congress, but it wasn't until 1981 that Congress authorized employees being able to contribute to these plans. But by the mid-1980s, many companies started to offer these to employees and, as we know, go away from pensions. And at the time of the movie shooting, the actor who played Kevin's dad, Peter, the actor John Hurd, was 44 years old, and the actor who played Kevin's mom, Kate, Catherine O'Hara, was 36. So I created retirement plan projections for each of them. I assume they both started participating in their 401ks in 1987, and they contributed the maximum to their plans beginning that year until the year they retired. The maximum employee contribution in 1987 was $7,300. I assume that both of their employers contributed 5% of their salary per year into the plans, and I used an estimated 8% annual rate of return to grow the balances in both their 401ks. I assume Peter worked and contributed to his 401k until he was 70, and that's a 30-year period, and over from the estimate of starting in 1987. And so he would have contributed $346,000 into his 401k, and his employer, with that 5% match, would have put in about $450,000. And I'm assuming that his salary in $207,000 in 1990 grew by 3% per year until retirement. He would have retired in 2017 at 70 with $2.5 million in his 401k. Using a 5% withdrawal rate, he could have started withdrawing $127,000 per year from his 401k beginning in 2017 to fund his retirement. I assume Kate McCallister retired the same year as Peter in 2017. She didn't work until 70, she worked until 65. And over her 30 years of contributing to her 401k, she contributed $368,000 and her employer contributed $216,000. I also inflated her salary in 1990 of $100,000 by 3% a year. And she would have retired in 2017 with $1.8 million and been able to withdraw, same 5% a year from her portfolio for retirement income, which would have been $90,000 a year. Assuming they didn't have pensions, they also would have been eligible for Social Security, which, assuming Peter collected his benefit at 70, today would be about $60,000 a year, and Kate's would have been about $36,000 a year, giving them a combined income when they retired in 2017 of $313,000. So that's more than their income in 1990, but obviously that just doesn't adjust for 34 years of inflation. We obviously saw that they'd be the richest 1% of Americans in 1990. That wouldn't be the case with $300,000 of income in 2024, but that would still be a very good amount of income, or in 2017. This also assumes that they didn't save any other money than what they contributed to their 401ks. As we saw, they had about $78,000 of discretionary income before the children began college. So they could have easily saved up another couple $1 million by just saving $2,000 per month. Definitely the ability to save some more money. And why did I assume a 6% growth rate? Because anytime you're saving taxable money, you're going to have to pay tax on any capital gains, dividends, or interest you receive. So that's going to reduce your return over time. So this money will not grow as fast as it would have in a tax-deferred retirement account. What about life insurance? Well, I would hope that with a family that has 5 children, both Peter and Kate would have had life insurance. Obviously, if either of them were to pass away prematurely, that would really put the family in a difficult financial position. So I tried to look up what term life insurance would cost for people in 1990, but it was really hard to find that data. My best guess is that it would have cost Peter about $180 per month for a 20-year term policy that he took out in 1990. And I would hope that was assuming a $1.5 million death benefit. And I estimated Kate would need about $1 million of term insurance for a similar 20-year policy, and that would cost her about $150 a month. This would have been the best thing for them to do using term insurance. It's the most affordable way to have life insurance. They also could have gone the cash value route, but I think they would have been better off going with term insurance because it would have been the least costly thing for them to do. Finally, what about estate planning? What type of estate planning might they have had? What I would hope that when you're getting on a plane with your children, going overseas, right, you would have had the right estate planning in place. I would hope they would have had a will, a healthcare power of attorney, and a financial power of attorney for each other. They also should have specified who would be their children's guardians because they have minor children. So if they were to pass away before their children reach the age of majority, they would need to appoint somebody to care for them. So who would have cared for them? If Kevin's parents had died when he was left home alone, who would have cared for him? Would it have been his cranky and cheap Uncle Frank, who in the movie didn't want to pay for the $120 pizza bill? Or his wealthy and largely unknown Uncle Rob, who flew the whole family over to Paris for the Christmas holiday? Without these details written down, it's up for the probate court and the family court to decide, and it might not have been what Kevin's parents wanted. So definitely a lot for them to consider. So this concludes my analysis of the McCallister family financial plan. It's clear that this fictional family, who would have been quite wealthy in 1990, would have been able to stay wealthy if they made smart decisions with their money, like anybody else, right? I often point out that you don't need to find the next hottest investment to build your wealth. You don't need the hottest stock tip or whether it's going to be Bitcoin or whatever it is you're searching for. You just need to spend below your means, save a good amount of your income, at least 10% a year of what you earn, and build a solid portfolio that focuses on keeping costs down and maximizing returns by participating in as much of the financial markets gains as possible. So I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and maybe you can apply some of these lessons to your own plan. And I wish you and your families a wonderful holiday and Happy New Year. And I look forward to talking to you again in 2025. Take care.